Hey, just a reminder that on Sunday and Saturday I might not quite be on at 10 a.m. Thinking I might schedule it more like 12 or 1 because I would like to have some consistency with the time so people know when I'll show up, even if I'm not doing it quite at 10 a.m. Just so I can have a little extra time in the morning. How is everyone this week? Hey, Jay. Hey, Korea. You guys ready for the weekend? Woohoo! I know I am, although tomorrow is going to be another big work day. But after that, Sunday should be good. So, what are we going to talk about today? So, what are we talking about today? One of the things I thought we could talk about is guilt. Ooh, how many people struggle with guilt? It's an interesting topic because there is ways to completely eradicate certain types of guilt. But the question is that really, is that what we want? And when do we want it? So psychologists tell us that people who feel shame, right, are more likely to continue in those negative patterns. So, but if you feel guilt over something, like people who feel guilt, they're more likely to not continue in a negative pattern. What is the difference there? Shame is somebody is making you feel bad, right? It's an outward thing onto you. Guilt is internally when you're saying, well, this action is not consistent with what I believe is right, with my internal compass of integrity. That's guilt, when you feel that internally, when you're like, wow, I really shouldn't have done that. Shame is when you feel it externally. Other people are going to look at me and think that I shouldn't have done that, right? I'm embarrassed or ashamed for having done something, or someone else is shaming you, right? So that's the difference. But what do we do when there are things maybe we feel guilty for that we shouldn't feel guilty for? What do we do about those? How do we get rid of those? Hey, Pedro. Hey, Jay. Thank you, Jay, for the compliment. It's a beautiful woman. What do we do when we feel guilt for things? How do we get rid of guilt in situations where maybe we don't need guilt? So that's one of the big things. What would be the way to do that? One is when you really understand this concept of property rights, when you really understand that you fully own yourself, that you don't owe it to anybody else, unless you have actually made a commitment, an agreement to do something for someone, which is why when you really understand this framework, keeping your word is what is important. Being integrity with your word is important. So if I agree to do something, or I say I'm going to do something, I've made an agreement, I've made a commitment to do it. And then I want to make sure that I follow through and do it. And if I can't do it, I have to tell them, I have to rearrange it, right? But there's a lot of things that we may feel pressured into doing or pressured to agree to that are in fact not, they're just not our responsibility. They're not something we have to do. Okay. How often do other people pressure us into something? Oh, can you please send out these thank you letters? Can you please do this for me? Do that for me? Come over to my house and help me move, right? Whatever it is. Or, bake cookies for the bake sale. Or can you pick up my kids and take them to your house? Or whatever that is, right? The other people are asking us to do all of these things. And the ability to just say no and know that you don't need to feel any guilt about that. Why? Because your time is 100% owned by you unless you've made some kind of agreement to do something like this. Why is this so important? I've just been noticing in my life that my day can get overrun with stuff. And a lot of it's really great stuff. A lot of it's good stuff that I need to do. But how often is it that pressure, like, oh, I need to do this for somebody, or someone's asked me for this and I need to get back to them on that, or whatever, right? And those things can have a tendency to take precedent over what I'm trying to do for myself or my own work when I'm feeling pressured from someone else to do something for them. And that kind of prioritization is very common for us, but it is inaccurate. Jay says, what moment in happiness different? I'm not sure what you mean by that, Jay. Maybe try rewriting the question so I can understand a little more clearly what you were trying to ask. And then I will be sure to answer. So what happens when we are feeling guilty for doing things that maybe we don't need to do? Then that's something we can just toss out, okay? Because oftentimes what happens with me is when other people are asking me for things, I have a tendency to prioritize. It's urgent to them, but it's not necessarily urgent to me, right? And I have a tendency to prioritize responding to them or doing what they're asking for before getting done the most important things for myself. And I think that's a very common thing for all of us. When other people are applying pressure to us, we're like, okay, well, I got to get this out. I got to take care of this. But maybe, I love the saying, what's your emergency is not my emergency. So if you haven't responded, you haven't gotten me what I needed, and now it's an emergency for you, then, that's your emergency. It's not mine. Right? So don't put that on me and make me work during the weekend just because you haven't taken care of what you needed to take care of. So that's one of those things, right? And also oftentimes for me, I will, there's other things I want to do, like launching the book and getting the website stuff done and creating things for young people and for children to be able to use to work on this. And those can keep getting postponed while I do stuff for everybody else. And that's not okay. So the important thing is to just be guilt-free, to just say, you know what, I'm sorry, I can't take that meeting this week. Get back to me in a few weeks. I can't take this week. I've got these other things I need to handle. And just let it go, right? Let it go, push it off. It's not the most important thing that you have to do, that you have to prioritize. Even if other people want you to get back to them, it's not necessarily the most important thing for you. And you own yourself. You own your time completely. You don't have to do any of it. You could walk away if you wanted to, right? So just let that give you a little more courage to say no. Or practice that. No, sorry, thank you. I can't do that this week. No, sorry, that's just not going to be happening. Right? Allow yourself to say no. It's very hard to do, especially hard to do with friends who, you want to please, you want to visit, right? But there are times it's just not going to fit into your schedule. So don't feel guilty about those things. There are things to feel guilty about, and there are things to absolutely not feel guilty about. And that whole big box of stuff, right, that other people want you to do, that's one of the things you don't have to feel guilty about. Okay, so just erase that guilt right now. There are other things that, it can be helpful to have a little twinge of guilt about, like if you don't keep your word or you don't do something you're supposed to do. So yeah, in that case, feel that little twinge and be like, okay, next time I'm going to remember to do better at that, right? But there's a whole bunch of stuff there's just no need to have any guilt about. So let's eradicate that guilt. Let's just wipe it out because you didn't make an obligation to do it. You have no obligation to them to give them your time, your money, or your effort. So, just say no and enjoy it. Okay? All right. And remember, I love that saying, your emergency is not my emergency. So, just know that that's true. And this is what I find. Sometimes people come after me for stuff and they're like, oh, you got to do this right away. It's just super urgent and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, you know what? I can't do it right now because I've got this other stuff I got to take care of. And what do I find out? It really wasn't that much of an emergency after all. A, they took care of it themselves, which they could have done just fine. Or B, they turns out that if I did take it on, right, this happens to me all the time with clients. Oh, you got to get this done right away. I need this and so I work on the weekend and I get it to them. And then like 3 days later, I'm like, hey, did you check that? Like, what's going on? Did you check? I thought you said it was an emergency. Oh, I haven't gotten to it yet. I'm like, okay, so you made me work on the weekend. You made this whole big emergency out of it. And now you haven't even looked at it. That was not an emergency, obviously. See? Hi, Suleiman. Nice to see you. Good to see you, my man. So we're talking about eradicating guilt around saying no to stuff. And I was about to jump off, but say it again, right? When you really know that you own yourself fully, that you own your time, your effort, your money, your emotional space, everything that you do, you don't ever have to feel guilty about not doing things for other people where they're just like asking you for stuff or demanding stuff from you, but maybe it's not a good time for you. Maybe you need to be focused on your stuff first. And so unless you have made an actual agreement and agreed to do something, then you don't need to worry. It's just like you can be free to say a guilt-free, no, thank you, I can't manage that this week or next week, or no, thank you, that's not a project I'm working on, right? And allow yourself just to say no without any kind of fear or guilt around it. That is a great freedom, right? I think that for a lot of us, like for me right now, I've got to look at my life and I've got to see, what do I need to cut out? What do I need to cut back on? Because I just don't have time. I'm doing multiple projects and I've got some really important projects I'm trying to get out with the book. And I'm like, what do I need to cut back on? And then at the same time, I want to have a baby. I'm like, I need to cut back even more of some of this stuff that I'm doing, that I'm taking on or doing for other people. I need to delegate more, right? So, oh, thank you. He says, you look so gracious. Thank you very much. That's sweet. So how do we cut out the non-essentials in our lives so that we can really focus on our priorities, on what's really important to us, right? So for me right now, I want to be able to focus on my relationship. I want to be able to focus on creating a family. I want to focus on the work I'm doing with getting out, you know, like promoting and getting out this book and the work around teaching these principles. And so what are all the other little things that are just crowding into my day, eating up all my time? And then I get to the end of the day and I've been so busy and I've done all this stuff and I've responded to all these emails and I've, you know, taken care of stuff for people, but I haven't worked on what's really important. I haven't worked on, you know, creating my website, my new website. I haven't worked on getting out the word. I haven't worked on creating a new brochure for children, right? So then I get to the end, and that can happen week after week. And I'm like, 3 weeks later, I knew I needed to do this stuff. I still haven't done it because I keep, you know, in this cycle of busyness and work and responding to other people rather than just shutting it all out and saying, sorry, your emergency is not my emergency. I need to focus on the most important things for me. So how do we do that? I find oftentimes if it's whatever's the most important, it's the first thing I have to do in the day while I still have the energy, because, you know, we don't always have as much energy as we wish we did. I'm trying to, you know, eat more healthy and take different kinds of health supplements and stuff to help me have more energy throughout the day. But I know that there's like only a certain number of hours where I have like really strong, focused mental energy. And I have to use that energy wisely and put it to the very first thing that has to get done that day. So, hey, Essay. Hey, Julia. So anyway, that's what we're talking about. Guilt-free, no, and focus on what your priorities are. And so I hope you do that this weekend or this next week, thinking about that. What are your priorities? What are the most important things for you to get done in this coming week that is really going to make a huge shift in your life or in the lives of others? It's really going to make a difference. Sit down and think about that. Plan that out. What is my thing this week that I'm going to do that's going to do that? All right. And I'm going to do that too today. So I hope you guys have an amazing day and weekend. Okay. Solomon says, okay, good. He's on board. He's going to do it. All right. We're both going to do that this weekend. make sure that we get the most important stuff done next week. All right, that's what David teaches us. Focus on the building blocks and bottlenecks. All right, my friends, you guys have a beautiful day. Bye.